Следующей секции. Меня зовут Борис Симис, я представляю Positive Technologies и как здесь секретарь организаторов форума. Я хотел бы сегодня поговорить про образование, но не в целом про образование. Образование тема очень такая обширная. Я хотел бы взять там, один вопрос, один кусок вопросов, но, может быть, поставить
I would like to speak about education.
эпатажно, что ли. Смотрите, в чем дело. Вот я, в принципе, человек...
I'm not a person of a science. I do not teach anywhere. But what I've been doing is maintaining the security systems. And I know a bunch of people responsible for information security and experts. And none of these people, when building the information security system, utilizes scientific methods or approach. Either they use norms and documents, or they just take Gazprom's Sberbank and they write a concept of information security, etc. But knowing from my own practice, it turns out to be different each time, and I don't understand why. Maybe there's some cryptography, mathematical methods. Maybe it's very far away from practice. We have a practical conference and I would like to discuss it with a scientific society and understand what's going on. So we will have a panel discussion without presentations, answers and questions, and I will represent the members. We've gathered different people here. Higher education, classic universities, MGU, Moscow State University, Denis Gamayunov, and we have Alexander Baranov, the Bauman University, Mr. Sklerov, Dmitry Sklerov is here. Yuri Malinin, Applied Solutions, Ministry of Justice, Andrei Fedichev, Ministry of Justice. So the first question to you, I would start with you, Andrei. Information security, science, is there such a science which can really have a real person and real plant?
Опыт, я 8 лет проработал главным инспектором в СТЭКе, сейчас работаю директором научного центра правовой информации при Минюсте.
My experience proves that basically there is no such science. There are applied things that may be registered, have been registered as separate subjects, but as science and practice, it does not exist. That is my opinion. Denis, what do you think about it? I would like to specify I'm from Moscow State University. I'm in charge of the scientific labs. And first of all is the prospective research, and the second one is a more classic MGO style. We are tackling the information security issues. As science, it does exist, but if we take a look at it, if we try and define the science as, let's release a book which will have everything on it and will teach how to defend any single company, I think it does not exist. Dmitry, I cannot call myself belonging to Bauman University. I work there, I've been working there since 2003, but I cannot speak for the whole university. I can speak about my experience. I think it's risk management related to the information handling. No one explains this to the students before their final year in the university. Seems like that the risk management is a very comprehensive topic, and even for 6 years in Bauman University, you cannot give this knowledge to the person. Just very fragmented things, which do help people in life, are based upon some science, but they all just pieces and chunks. And I work in positive technologies mainly. Share my knowledge from a university, so I think the connection between education and security does exist, but this security should be bilateral. A lot of practical things should stem into new knowledge, and the reverse connection is irreversible.
Мы более 18 лет занимаемся обучением по прикладным предметам, скажем так, даже практическим предметам. И вопрос...
The questions of, is there a science? Yes, there is science, but applied education from our side, it's delivery of scientific research as practical knowledge to those people who need it. Some kind of a provider. In the part of scientific research, we can remember same scientific directions that were formed and determined by Security Council. They have humanitarian and methodological departments. If you will look and see whether there are results, I didn't study this question in detail, but what are the results of these scientific studies? Are there any public structures which were involved in these scientific studies? Did they bring them to complete realization? That would be wonderful. But if not, if there are results, I still have big doubts about that. And those who are involved in science, companies like yours, you look and see those scientific studies which possibly in the future could be commercialized or monetized, and you are more active in this. So what do you think, Alexander Pavlovich? Why don't we see a clear objective? Like, for example, we have authorities, we have public authorities, we have scientific institutions. Why don't they generalize statistical information on how these information security systems are being developed? What are the best practices? Which are the errors? Which are the approaches? And can they produce some general recommendations so people don't begin from the scratch and building their information security systems? Well, it's a very serious question. I think it's very understandable for me because I work in innovative services, in real practical work, when I'm responsible for development of information security systems. On the other side, I'm the head of Higher School of Economics in the Information Security Department, where we have postgraduate program. And the fact that we see important problems there, we transfer it to the educational facility. We train our security guys from the tax inspection. We have a number of specialists from tax inspection, and it's a very effective connection, link, I would say. But we have to admit honestly that today informational security lives to the condition where it's still not a science. There's a science called naukometrics, science metrics, which looks at the development of the science, and information security as a science is in the condition of approaching an accumulation of the facts, even though we still do see certain attempts and efforts in the direction of classifications and hypothesis statement about its further development and directions of this development. And practice is ahead of theory. There is no way to get out of it. But speaking about information security, and especially information security, it was always like that, even in old days. Cryptography as a science didn't exist, but encrypting was done. People were writing on the head, then been recording, sending people, and that's it. So it was back then when cryptography or steganography didn't exist as a science. So experience is ahead of all of us. So the objective of generalization, we do have it ahead of us. But why it's not done in real practice? But who's going to be the client? Tell me, who's going to be the client? Who will pay money for security of commercial information? Who is a client for security of not state secret? Well, for state secret, there is a client. It's of STEC, FSB, many other companies, and we have a legislation about it. But who is a client for protection of confidential information, for protection of non-state secrets? And if you will analyze, really, you cannot find those clients. You can ask a question in the 8th center of FSB, how do they distribute their budgets for R&D operations? And they are the only clients together with FSTEC. I'm speaking about it because 5 years ago I was a deputy head of the 8th center. Their budget is mostly spent for development of more complex and important problem for the state. But they don't have any remaining budgets for anything else. So why commercial organizations don't order these services, especially like big banks, big organizations in other sectors? For example, tax inspection, why don't they order for any scientific studies? We don't have any operations of scientific profile, even though information security budget in different years, of course, it was different, but it's on level of 200 million rubles. And it's all spent for practical applications. Why? I've been asking this question to myself. And I believe I have found answer to this question. And I started being a kind of evangelist of this answer. It's an answer to a question, whom are we defending ourselves? We don't have clear answer. We have this risk analysis. And I'm not going to speak about that because it's a absolutely big problem and we can speak hours and hours about it. And we've been speaking about possibility, non-possibility of calculating all the risks. Yes, there's certain in-source resources and they're funny. Books. Well, I had a question just about that. I think it's an interesting topic. Back in time, at the beginning of 2000s, I've been teaching BSI and I've been preaching the same approach, risk-based approach. But right now, 10 years after, I do see it looks beautiful in the paper, but in real life, if anybody have done real analysis of risks, well, we never seen that. So the questions will come after. We should argue, and this is normal. I don't see anything like that. And in United States of America, there are on a new leap. First, they've developed requirements. Then they developed approaches. Right now, they have top 20 approach. Why it is done like that? Well, just because. So it is interesting for me to know from the side of scientific people, people from science, what is to be done. Well, I will explain it to you. Why did it happen like that? Why risks were in such an awful position? Why we can't use them? First of all, because nobody.
Ну, не сказано, что американская разведка и АНБ является противником для коммерческой информации. Вот, например, в модели противника налоговой службы, и это черным по белому.
And it states openly in papers, I'm not disclosing any secret, just we insisted on that, me and Oleg Kovalyov, saying that the imperialists has no interest about such information because it's all limited with the personal data. And it does not stipulate such things at all, which is the right thing to do, because it would otherwise make it even more expensive, but it's a separate topic. And this risk approach can be developed by the organization, which has a very big structure on information security. You need to hire a lot of independent experts, the experts who monitor different events, but not just one single one. And when all of the events are correlated and the average one is 0 and is made up of 1 not out of 10, saying that it happened in central bank some time ago, whatever, it cannot be afforded by a large organization. So it's either the regulators who do that, and they don't do that, or a large international organization. And they don't do it either. Well, I think we just need to agree on terms and definitions, because in many legislative acts, information security statements do contradict one another. Well, this topic is quite interesting. Let's just ask people from the floor, those of you who have questions. Dmitry Farmin from Rusagro. I have a few comments. Before 2010, I was working in Большой and I was exchanging mails with you. As far as Center 8 is doing, I was not discussing it with you. I'm not going to discuss it right now. All the tasks and topics, I was personally involved in Mr. Putin's and Mr. Medvedev phone conversation. I think that's not quite the conversation. We're talking about students and the state important programs. I'm talking about the topics we're discussing. I can hardly imagine why there are no commercial customers so that somebody would have to create a mobile terminal. Well, in tax service, we have created and developed an autonomous workplace of the controller, a protected one, because the tax inspectors are interested about it. They're considered as violators, etc., etc. So it's good, and it's done in a mobile fashion. So you're referring to Center 8. Let's skip it. I saw 2007 and the risks evaluations. However, it's strongly criticized. It still has large performance tasks. You ask it from the directors, they give you the costs. You expect to establish the probabilities, and you show the couple of pages of A4 format saying that let's spend 20,000 rubles for its implementation. But the problem seems to be that another risks analysis of different approach is used, and you don't really understand. Previously, people were spending millions, and what were they basing it upon? On your personal expert opinion. That's your expert assessment, and sometimes it depends. That's a concrete problem. And sometimes they say you have misjudged that. Where did you get this method from? Local norms. I'm from a leasing company, and the main problem of education, state education in information security, seems that people don't really know what they're going to be working for, and they will be working for the business. So it's a very relevant topic. So I would say that they don't understand the business that they are protecting. At the higher school of economics, I was reading lectures on business processes, and it was missing from there. Not a good topic. All of the policies on information security should be not abstract ones. So of course, yes. So the technical measures to be taken. You can buy checkpoint, you can buy anything, but what for? You just need to meet the business needs, not the product. Here's a question to you. And you teach, and you just teach information security, or you just teach information security in banks and telecoms. It is very different, and you cannot just give abstract numbers. Yes, you can. No, not really. That we give the management of the information security. I read this course, information security in state and private sector, where this philosophy is stated, the whole philosophical topic, and this whole philosophy is taught in the universities in a very bad way, and philosophically they're not too good. So you just need to start with some simple terms. But then people take a look at any scheme quite philosophically, and of course the business process influences the decisions that we need to take protecting these systems, but the general aspects also reveal. The safety expert should work on that. There are two people, the management of the information security, and they implement it. Take a look at the GHOST standard. It was released last year by speciality, and it stipulates the types of experts on information security. None of them your question.
Всем здравствуйте, меня зовут Кирилл Тушенко, я занимался многие годы управленческим консалтингом. Если честно, довольно страшно то, о чем вы сейчас говорите, все, что прозвучало до этого. Просто я не знаю, здесь нет практиков, что ли, в зале, и все сидят, молчат, кивая. Ну, может быть, вы все довольно уважаемые люди, все известные, в общем-то, и всех присутствующих за столом. Я заочно знаю по публикациям, выступлениям, и очевидно, что вы в каждой своей отрасли занимаете более чем
Давайте вопрос, давайте.
видное
Да.
место. Да, но дело...
Не стесняйся, давай, давай.
What will be your question, please?
Слава богу, мог Дмитрий принять в ту годы, когда я учился, но я, к сожалению, его курс не выбрал, просто потому что... Да, собственно, по поводу того, что вы говорили о том, что, например, просто последнюю ремарку о том, что вы не знаете, кто нарушитель, и следом после этого...
You didn't know who the violator was, and you said the violator was your tax inspectors joining you for the inspection. And what will be your question? It's not a question, it's a comment to what I've been hearing, because it is very painful what I've heard. Russia is lagging behind scientifically in the applied way. In the West, in that very West, all of the methods of the risk assessment, of the information security, there are so many of them there. They are all available to any security expert. And the assessment of risks, there are like 5 of them, very popular ones. And the risks can be evaluated in qualitative and quantitative terms. These are the things that people have been using for dozens and dozens of years. It's a science. Would you say that the central bank or any other bank cannot just count these risks? They know how to do it. Otherwise they would have gone bankrupt a long time ago. They know what risk assessment is all about, and they have departments specialized in the risks assessment, and they also operate with the information security risks. We understand your message. We don't have too much time. Why didn't you invite any practitioner here? We're all practitioners here. I was implementing this process like 10 years, and I know the likes. And when I was reading these foreign publications, practically this risk-based approach is the thing that we are drifting away from, and the things that you have been explaining are simple things, but in life I've seen lots of formalities that don't actually work, that don't end up as practice, and we may be interested about what kind of scientific research you use. Maybe there is something else that is expecting us, that we can expect. So, according to my experience, we have more than 50 bodies of the executive powers. You ask the person responsible for information security, senior administrator, whatever, why do you use this or that method? Why you've been using this or that software and hardware platform? What's the most interesting answer? Could you have a blind guess? I know that. So it seems like it's not the price of the risk, it's not the price of the approach, but I just know it. And that's the popular answer. And sometimes the person would say, the person cannot assess the risks adequately. And we know that the lock in our apartment, if we buy the best lock to our apartment, in a year it will be breached and cracked, but we do not replace the locks very often, although we all know about that. We buy the most state-of-the-art alarm system, and in 2 years a school kid can break into it, but no one replaces it. Maybe you're not holding millions of dollars at home. Simple as that. That's why you're not changing it. Well, thank you. Thank you. I have a question to you and to all of you. In terms of scientific practices, the organization structure, what is it supposed to be? Yesterday we were discussing it in a session, the hacker's truth, and the guys told me that creating a system which really works without having the red team, without that those people who know how to hack themselves, is not possible. It's not possible to make it real and effective, whatever millions you spend. In terms of practices, what do you think? What would be the best to build this organization structure, and what would be the right approach? Let me take this answer. I was listening to it. I was trying to make it more systematic, and seems like everything is rotating around this question: who is the boss, and who is going to be paying for all these methods? Who are we protecting against? It also answers the question: who is the boss? Who is the customer, rather? And I very much like this analogy with biology. Boris, Alexander, could you please tell me, you continuously work on security like everyone else here, even if we are not belonging to security. How? When we just simply leave your organism, your body is exposed, for example, to lots of viruses. If you shut down your immune system, you'll fall ill, etc. And we have data on how much the organism spends on protection, the human organism, the human body. It's all clear. We have organizations required by a regulator, go and protect. And the Kiwi company yesterday was explaining how they were testing that red team practice, which costs quite a lot of money. The company has spent money on that very expensive practice, and it was using it. And each person sitting here spends up to 65% of energy every single second on protection. That's the target the human evolution sets us, and the human evolution has been trying to reach this point for a long time. In evolution, there was this Cambrian explosion. It was a fact that if you dig deep into the ground, at a certain level, there will be no organisms buried there, and they start emerging from a certain level again. That Cambrian explosion is when the protection mechanisms appeared, like skeleton, etc. Evolution started spending energy on that, and I think in organizations, in economy, it's a very natural process. Everyone does this security when it's reasonable, when it's energetically reasonable. When it's too late, someone has already eaten you, or has been trying to bite you. There have been such practices, and some people were criticizing Russia for lagging behind. So what? Maybe we don't really need it. You may use it, but you just think on how much it's going to cost you. If you have to pay 300,000 rubles per month, and how much they earn, those who do it as a turnkey project, how come? Why should you? It's better to answer these questions consecutively. Who is going to pay? Of course, it's the company. Why? What? Well, it's quite right. It's correct. We have a bunch of aspects of security, like physical security, whatever. And the organization structure will be changed in any normal organization, either when a regulator is requiring that. And with the regulator, we know the risks. Like the Soviet Union was living in the era of risks, and the norms appeared to protect the state secret, etc., etc. The situation is different right now economically, and the norms are not getting from somewhere. They're not just getting from nowhere. You just need to live through it, and then make it a standard, then turn it into regulators' requirement, and this cycle can repeat many times. I would like to ask you all this question. There's this funny story about this engineer going there, and he was being given the broom in the factory to start with, although he was a certified engineer.
Знания, которые им дал,
Here's a question. Did you really use that knowledge that you gained in the university and a higher education institution?
Давайте, говорите.
Конечно, ну дайте.
Добрый день, всем. Меня Михаил Яненко зовут.
My name is Mikhail from Savit Group, system integrator, data protection. From my experience, well, I'd worked for information security. I worked in the Ministry of Defense for data protection, etc., etc. System integrator, and I teach in a university. I'll start with the final question about educational. Education, I know quite a lot of experts in different cities, and I would say that there are problems with education, with data protection. I personally think that there's not sufficient practice, and sometimes we even miss the equipment for two reasons. First of all, there is poor interaction with vendors, because they mainly interact with regulators, and there are not too many people who really do something about it. And second of all, those who do, the situation is much better with them. And secondly, the legislation itself practically cannot catch up with all of the trends. Like, for example, just some time ago, this bank of threats and vulnerabilities appeared there. Although there may be a practical trend which will hit the education in a few years. So I think that's what we need to know. We all learn when we already start work. It's about the structure. For structure, we just need to start with the process model. However you criticize it, ISO methods really do apply here, and they do work. There are ghosts, of course, telecom ghosts, and what it should include: analytics. We start from processes. We start with the vulnerabilities process. If the company can afford take an expert for 150,000 a month for 12 months, if this process should be done twice a month, it better stick to the outsourcing process, and they'll be scanning it once a month. And people should be defined with processes. You would just need to establish change management. It's evaluated with extrapolation, and the map of processes is created with a load, and the vacancies are started, initiated. So the structure should be defined by the existing processes. To threaten the business with fines, 20,000 ruble fines, people would say that we pay more fines for fire security. And there are businesses like, I was having an example. I was speaking with one larger telecom provider, and they had serious attacks on subscribers, and they were losing money. And the business said, if we are losing less than 2% from our turnover, forget it, it's fine. But I think it's more an example of the poor analysis. We might agree with it, but I think they were quite wrong, and the role of the security. And I wanted to compare this education and the sell of the information security. You criticized all these methods, saying that they are far from reality, and very often the target here is to teach the business and to find the allies. And you need to find the allies in HR and legal service, etc., etc. In actual fact, if you are able to sell security to all these people, you will gain their support. The hardest task, and if you're given 15 minutes and you just need to explain what information security is to a dollar millionaire. If you did that, you'll have everything. If not, no. Well, I think you've drawn the line here for black hats, other documents. I think we need to understand whether we understand that we have risks, we have more incidents. The systems are not protected. So I think the industry is obviously doing something wrong. I'm talking about information security. We are building a system which is hacked and cracked and broken everywhere in the world. I feel very odd here because I'm a practitioner. I mainly specialize in reverse engineering. I work with code. I would say that the security is not the state. You can tune the business process. That you cannot build a business process that will work for 10 years. That's a major mistake here of your business model. You think that you can hire engineers, they will do everything for you, and in a week they will create a new attack and you will have to start all over again. None of the models which can be described by static system is applicable here. It should be tuned each time, and every time you need to spend money. There is no such mistake. What is my mistake like? You cannot consider the security as a process that has an end point. I didn't say that this process is static. You just need to manage this twice a month. Can you hear me? This vulnerability management process is not static. You are slipping to this private talk about technology, and I think we're missing a very important detail which characterized the development of the computer technologies. What is happening now is projected on information security. I mean, the users, there are hundreds of millions of users. Mass computerization is taking place, is turning into mass information security. Do you remember the encryption services? They were encryption experts specializing in that, but now it's different. When you work with the personal page in a text service, basically that's my practice. That's what I work on. The Higher School of Economics is my second job, and mainly I create information systems for mass users, and the mass users are the main problem. And obviously these processes are definitely very complicated. We have more than 1,000 business processes. In actual fact, there are even more. We combine them, and this 1,000, well, that's not the situation when we have 10 or 20 of such processes. And legislation constantly changes, etc., etc. So these constant adjustments lead to that the old methods of information security stop working. That's why the systems became so developed, because this system allows you to be more relaxed, but that's not acceptable per se. I don't know any serious system having hundreds of thousands of users. May I have your attention, please? We were discussing risks, we were discussing information protection, whatever. Our topic was regarding education, science, etc. I'm Maxim Avdyev. I work with the information protection. I'm Denis's colleague in the university from a different chair. The practical security and the way it's taught in the best universities worldwide is a very well-known process. I worked for information protection, and I worked with those things that we did in a university, and the knowledge I received for 5 years became very, very popular. And here Denis is doing a very right thing. This lab is giving practical skills. It gives the tangible ability to hold this information security, and I think that's the way to do it, and not actually discussing the interaction with the business, creating risk models or whatever. These are the things that are needed, but not to the students. We need to discuss it when they really have this practical experience. And now there are two types of approach. The stack documentation that the people actually hate, and none of the students is actually able to understand why they need that. And the second option is to give very complicated mathematical models, trying to formalize mathematically the security issues. I think this academic approach is not quite suitable, because information security is for protecting against vulnerabilities, exploits, and things like that. I think half of my colleagues do not understand why we need to have that, and then they legalize their own skills in positive technologies, for instance. As far as you know, what should be the different between the practical course and the lecture course? You said that you joined your employer, and the knowledge that you were given you didn't need, and the knowledge you used were really useful. I think it would be better to ask them what questions are relevant. We have the magistrate, and that's what they have. Those who have already been employed. We have the exact priorities to those who already work by their specialty, and everyone is already employed. They work and study. And we start our classes at 6 p.m. They're interested about the new things. You don't need to explain anything regarding the electronic logs to them, but for the bachelors, we need that. And we also have different... we're closing our session right now. I'm not a representative of the university, but what we've been seeing in the implementation of the practical tasks, the vendors, the processes, everything is happening. For example, if you take positive technologies, Infotech, they all create their own programs for the universities, and within the next couple of years the federal centers will be established with the universities, and they will be the universities performing the functions of practical knowledge sharing. There will be labs, the university is selected, and we're closing down. We only have one final point.
Я вас вижу. Прям два быстрых вопроса и все. Давайте.
Спасибо.
Да, Сейчас.
Гонщик, студент.
Да.
Итак, я хотел бы сказать, допустим, вот предыдущий человек комментарий давал о том, что вот академический подход неправильно. А нельзя ли сделать, допустим, академический подход немножко подкорректировать таким образом? Например, вот я недавно пишу научную публикацию в ВАК, мне редактор отвечает о том, что не хватает математики, больше математики. Тема многофакторная верификация. Перевожу на английский язык, больше делаю, и в отделе conclusion я говорю, какие в каком-то проценте есть практические результаты, такие-то, и я больше описываю именно результаты, и мне говорят, все хорошо, прекрасно. И в данном случае, вот, допустим, для меня непонятно, как получить ваковскую публикацию, и в данном случае, если у меня, допустим,
ребята пишут абстрактные темы, ну, не
Вопрос
практически.
понятен. Вот я главный редактор журнала «Кибербезопасность», ну, потому что это... Присылайте ко мне, опубликую. Притом, при всем, что «Кибербезопасность» ваковский журнал.
Все, спасибо. Можно тебе
ну,
следующий? Просто у нас же нет времени. Спасибо. Можно следующий вопрос?
Здравствуйте, я студентка 3-го курса МГТУ ГА Денисова Екатерина. И мне интересно, вы здесь обсуждаете риски, коды, вендоры, интеграторы. А мне интересно,
термины.
почему вы не обсуждаете техническую реализацию?
А можно я скажу?
Потому что продукты не работают.
Смотрите,
Не работают.
знаете, я как модератор,
Я могу сказать, вот почему...
Разные школы собрались.
Значит, ребят, в чем проблема? Вот, кстати, это и проблема, и ответ на вопрос относительно того, почему мы мало, вот, почему в вузах мало учат реальной безопасности. А что такое реальная безопасность? Это надо создавать стенды. А сколько стоит стенд по демонстрации и обучению, например, безопасности в телекоммуникациях? Вот Huawei сейчас с нами, с высшей школой, заключил соглашение о начале образовательного процесса на оборудовании Huawei, в том числе по вопросам информационной безопасности. Сколько стоит стенд? Стенд стоит $500 000. Это самый минимальный стенд, который предоставил Huawei нам бесплатно. Так, и мы его сейчас разворачиваем, будем на нем учить вот той самой практической реальной безопасности, какой, куда, какую кнопочку, сколько раз нажать для того, чтобы получилось что-то. А для стендов, например, по электронному замку таких приборов нужно иметь десятка, 2-3.
Потому что,
И общая сумма получится очень-очень прилично, но этого мало. Их же надо еще эксплуатировать. То есть нужно иметь специалистов, которые бы эксплуатировали стенды разных производителей. А по одним электронным замкам этих производителей с десяток. А уж по шифр-средствам, я вам расскажу одну историю, очень интересную.
Сейчас буквально осталось 30 секунд, а то потом будет
говоря,
неудобно.
стенд — это колоссальная проблема. Стендов нет ни у кого. И сколько мы не говорили,
Материальная
вот
база для обучения. Очень большая проблема.
Коллеги, спасибо огромное. Я в конце хотел бы поблагодарить за активность и вручить человеку, задавшему первый вопрос, беленькую футболку. Хорошо, да. И вот коллеги, которые фанат рискового подхода, вам тоже футболку. Спасибо большое за активность.
Небольшое объявление. Я являюсь директором научного центра правовой информации. И сейчас подыскиваю порядка 5 человек, ну, более-менее нормальных программистов. Зарплата от 60.
А технологии какие?